Welcome to Summer Dawn. We will be previewing the Cincinnati Bengals 2025 regular season. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's get right into this video. The Bengals are an interesting team. We know on paper they have the quarterback, they have the wide receiver talent. That should put them in the upper echelons of a Super Bowl contender. However, there's so many holes in this roster. They're coming off of back-to-back years of missing the postseason. If you know the Bengals, you know they don't get off to quick starts that plagued them last year. In an AFC where there's going to be a ton of talented teams, they can't get off to another slow start. Yet they find themselves in a situation where they don't have their best defensive player signed. They don't have their first-round pass rusher signed. And training camp is around the corner. And that's impactful for their defense because they've been a bottom 10 unit the last 2 years. And Trey Hendrickson, who I'm going to show this graphic for you guys, he's been their best defensive player. As you guys can see, in these last 2 seasons, he's gone for 17.5 sacks. That combines up to 35. So in total, when I looked over the stats, the Bengals had 80 sacks these last 2 seasons. Hendrickson has about 44% of their sacks, yet he hasn't received a contract extension. This is a unit that desperately needs Hendrickson. They don't have another credible pass rusher. They're not great when it comes to stopping the run. So Hendrickson is that bread and butter for this unit. And then moving to Shemar Stewart, who was their first round pick from this past draft, he has that athletic potential to be a prominent pass rusher. The stats don't show for it during his career at Texas A&M. But Shemar Stewart alongside Trey Hendrickson could be one of those power duos. And I'm not going to talk too much about how their contract situations are going. Just know that when it comes to Hendrickson, it revolves around how much money he's getting in terms of the years. And then for Shemar Stewart, there's some language that his camp doesn't really care for in terms of voiding his guarantees in his contract. Those are 2 pieces that were expected to be massive in improving this defensive unit from a year ago. And they don't have neither one of those 2 week 1. Again, we're going to have questions about whether or not the Bengals are going to get off to a quick start. And at the time of this recording, knock on wood if you're a Bengals fan, there haven't been any injuries to key players. So you're not going to be dealing with that, hopefully, going into week 1. So you need to make sure that you sign your top dogs to ensure that you get a quick start. Because the AFC is going to be filled with dogs. We already know the KCs, the Bills, the Ravens of the world. We can't count out the Texans. We can't count out the Chargers. There's going to be a ton of good teams that get relegated to the wild card, including potentially the Cincinnati Bengals. My guess is that we're going to see those 2 on the field at some point. I know for Hendrickson, what I've heard is that as long as he's able to play half of the season, that counts for a season for him in terms of his tenure in the league. So I can see a situation in which he misses the first 8 games of the year if a contract isn't given at that point. And then a quick little tidbit surrounding the Shemar Stewart contract disputes. This is the longest holdout by a first-round pick since Joey Bosa. Moving to the other side of the football, we got Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow leading the crew. Jamar Chase just signed the richest contract for a wide receiver. You re-sign T. Higgins. You have the talent on that offensive side, barring that running back position. I like Chase Brown. I think he's a good change of pace back, and he can run in between the tackles. But while getting my notes together, I did notice that their running game was non-existent. They ran for about 92, 93 yards per game last season. That was 3rd worst in the National Football League. For the Bengals to make more noise this year, that running game is going to have to be more persistent. It's going to have to get a little more production because I'm not really expecting the defense to take this unprecedented leap. I think it's going to be middle of the pack at best, especially if Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart miss games. But that running game has to be better, and it starts up front. That offensive line has to be more physical, and that has to lead to the running backs being able to capitalize on those opportunities. So in terms of my expectations for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2025, I expect them to be a playoff team. At the very minimum, a wild card team, because the AFC North is a tough division. But the Bengals cannot miss the playoffs for a third straight year. There's too much talent. Barring any midseason trades or late free agent signings, I think the Bengals, their ceiling for this season is getting to the AFC title game. I can see them doing that even with a mid defense because, again, Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback. When he's healthy and he's got his guys and they're all clicking, they're a dangerous team. The knock on them is, again, their inability to get off to quick starts. If they could correct that, along with the defense making slight improvements, this team can position themselves for a deep postseason run. Now, on the flip side of that, I can also see a scenario where they get bounced out in the wild card or divisional round, which again is a disappointment because this is a team that had just reached the Super Bowl back in 2021. And with all the money getting poured into Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and hopefully soon Hendrickson, there are no excuses for this team to not at least get to the title game. Because the overall goal, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the game right now, is that you have to come close to reaching the Super Bowl. You can't fall short that early on in the postseason run. Let me know what you guys think. Will the Bengals make a deep postseason run? Will they get back to the Super Bowl? Are Trey Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart going to get signed before the end of training camp? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate you and see you in the next one.